I'm Todd Beatty. I'm president of the Cambridge Historical Society, and I'm glad you're all here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Everyone knows Marika. We have a lot of board members here, and we have a lot of past counselors here. We have a lot of great staff. I would have the counselors wave if they could hear me. Where are the counselors? There's the counselor. There's the counselor. Frank's there. You know, Sam's somewhere. Sam is someplace. Oh no, I lost me. Kyle's there. Doug's there. Amy's there. Yeah. Kathy Bourne's somewhere. She's been on the board. Who else? I don't know. Anyway, thank you all for coming. We have a really fun evening. This is our second of the year. We started with our annual meeting where we talked about where is Cambridge from. We're just introducing the idea. And you all know that every year we have a theme. And this year is where is Cambridge from, which is grammatically weird. But we're always trying to find a better way to express it. But the nice thing about Cambridge is where is Cambridge from? It sort of evolved into a, the more we thought about it, the more it's hard to define. Could mean lots of things. And through the course of the year, I think we're going to be exploring all the different notions of where Cambridge is from. It's not just people, it's not just locations. And if you think about, we were playing this little game, if you're traveling abroad, when you say where are you from, you probably say you're from Cambridge. But if you are here in Cambridge, where are you from, you talk about you grew up in Connecticut or New York City. So it's just interesting, depends on where you are, is where you're from. So maybe at the time. Anyway, thank you for coming. We're going to have probably, how many cafes this year is scheduled? 6 more cafes. And I don't want to steal your little remarks. Probably they're in there too, right? Yeah. So let's get going and get Marika on board. You're next.
I'm next. Thank you. Thank you. What it is, a treat it is to be celebrating from Cambridge with you today. I know many of you are longtime friends of the Society and some of you are new. So how many here are experiencing us for the first time tonight? New people in the back. Welcome. Well, thank you for coming. It's a pleasure to have you. What do you need to know about us? In short, we are one of the most revolutionary historical societies in America. Our work is unique. Our humanities-focused approach to tackling contemporary issues through conversation, dialogue, and perspective-taking is a new idea, and it's one we're very proud of. How many people here have attended one of our events in recent months, years, and think we're doing something right? Can I get a yeah? Yeah. All right, great. Okay. As you have come to expect from us, we have another year of challenging, fun, and meaningful programs planned. Our History Cafe series kicks off May 30th at Atwood Tavern for an event we are calling Where is Cambridge From? Data. This may not sound thrilling, but for a year of Where is Cambridge From, I think you want to know who and where and what and why and what were those patterns and what's the demographic. And you're going to want to come because you're going to want that basis for the whole year. We've got we got all our other history cafes lined up, a walking tour, and of course our award-winning symposium this fall. I am looking forward to learning more and exploring this year's topic with you because I'm still personally asking myself, am I a Canterbury? Tonight we explore this year's theme of Where is Cambridge From through a lens of foodways. After tonight's presentation, I hope you will continue to sample the delicious food and refreshments from Jules Catering and the excellent Cambridge Brewing Company beer. Thank you to them. On your way out, there's a special thank you treat from our dear and talented friend, Jeremy Spindler of Spindler Confections. How many people have been? Gorgeous shop. I hope you go. It is the best, and he is the best, so please continue to support him. Of course, mingle with your fellow guests. In my experience, fans of local history are some of the smartest and sharpest, and dare I say, most beautiful people out there. So, and of course, you have the perfect icebreaker. So, are you from Cambridge? So, your being here in support of the Society and our work means so much to us. Thank you. I have so many people to thank for tonight's event, and I hope you'll join me in appreciating our sponsors, starting with our 2018 lead sponsor, IRB Real Estate. So thankfully tonight's sponsors are many, so I'm hoping we can just hold our applause. There's so many to list. Our generous sponsors include Elizabeth Adams Lasser, Sue Hickey, Sienna Construction, LJ Architecture and Interiors, Forest City, Bullfinch Companies, Cambridge 7 Associates, the Cambridge Homes, Capizzi, Darwin's, East Cambridge Savings Bank, QED Systems, Charles Hotel, Prospect Place Bed and Breakfast, Anonymous in honor of the owners of Grendel's Den for supporting Cambridge Youth Lacrosse, Priscilla McMillan, John Petrowski at Compass Real Estate, Elms Interior Design, Ted Hansen, Eastern Charitable Foundation, Levitt and Pierce, Heidi Pabell Interiors, Albert Wright and Tickman Architects, Gene Brooks Landscapes, Cambridge Brewing Company, and Spindler Confections. And our friend Jan Ferrara not only sponsored the event, but provided us with these gorgeous thematic floral arrangements on your table. And bonus points if you can identify why they fit the theme. So please join me in thanking tonight's sponsors for making it An event like this takes so much hard work from people behind the scenes, and I very much want to thank my team, Rosemary Previtt, Lynn Waskless, Maggie Hoffman, Marianne Hicks, and Victoria. Several people gave us their free time as well to help execute this event. Mallory McCoy, Joe Galusha, Brad Sewell, Michael Grasso, Danielle Demos, Larry Philbick, Rayshana Gray, and Karen Shepard. Thank you for very much. Club Mediterranean for enhancing our event. I've already heard so many wonderful things about the band, so thank you. You guys are excellent. And of course, the wonderful staff of the Kennedy Boat Club. What a gorgeous place. So, I'm pleased to introduce our presenters for tonight. They will be speaking about their own experiences on the intersections between food and place. After their stories, there will be a conversation, and of course, as always, you are all welcome to join in the conversation. I hope you do. And you're also joining in via our little map board here, where you can tell us some memorable events that you had at Cambridge restaurants. Some people wrote what their actual experiences were, as opposed to just the place, and of course, we love those. And just for the record, at all of our events, when we have events like this where you can write and share your memories, we keep all that. We put it all in our archives, so that at the end of the year, we have a glimpse and we can understand what Cambridge was feeling about something at a time. So please contribute your voice to the historical record, because how often do you get to do that? So please do that. Moderating tonight is Mary White, a food anthropologist at Boston University. From Minnesota and Chicago, she arrived in Cambridge in the early 1950s and is still considered to be, quote, from away. She did tell me tonight that her dad used to come out of his boathouse, which is lovely. So here she is returning. Thanks, Mary. Kari Kuelzer is part owner and general manager of long-standing Harvard Square's restaurant and bar, Grendel's Den. How many people here have a positive association with Grendel's? Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So, she grew up in Cambridge and spent some time away, but she's back and she knows she's made the right choice, and we are too. Thank you, Kari. Hector Piña is co-creator and owner of La Fábrica Central in Central Square, in addition to 3 other restaurants in Boston. Their new Cambridge restaurant offers Caribbean cuisine and cocktails, dancing, and an exciting cultural crossroads in the middle of the city. How many people have been there already? Wow, so look at all the new customers you're going to have, Hector, after tonight. So please join me in welcoming tonight's speakers and our moderator, Mary White.
Thank you so much for organizing this really interesting event. And it will be a conversation. Because after all, what is more compelling than food? I'm going to throw out a few ideas of my own from my own Cambridge food experiences. And I teach this stuff at BU, but I'm not going to try to organize it too much, and you don't have to take notes. First of all, though, there is no one Cambridge. You already know that. Everything's plural here. Economics, culture, community, and you can't epitomize something called Cambridge, though people try. It's changing as well in all the niches that we will describe. And most obviously, Harvard Square is not the central image of Cambridge, if it ever was. And it seems to be morphing into something even less unique than it ever was. You probably know that David Chang is about to open another location for his chain Momofuku, it's an empire really, in Harvard Square. Across the road from that will be the so-called Harvard Collection, which is an indoor mall with elite international brands like Prada and Armani. How do these phenomena speak to us? What do they say, and what will we say to them in return? This is all very interesting, but I'm really interested in how the past in Cambridge might speak to the present without excessive atavism. My past goes really far back, as you heard. I was really shocked to hear the other day that the Harvest restaurant represents old, classic Cambridge. It was only established in 1975. So how can it be old, classic Cambridge? Harvest was cutting edge in the past and now represents good, safe affluence. Good for rich Harvard parents and corporate diners. But back to the present. For me, the present began in 1953, where I started hanging out in Harvard Square, as young people did, and not in the pit. Places like Tulla's. I was so happy to see on this board people who go back maybe almost as far as I do with names that I recognize. Tulla's, Elsie's. I had tripe at Chez Dreyfus. Yeah. And half sours at the Midget Deli, I suppose. By 1958, my friends and I had created our own high school cafe in the basement of the Star Bookshop in the back of the Lampoon building. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Yeah. He's like testifying. Our chief amusement in those days was sitting in listening booths at the old Minuteman record shop on Boylston Street. Yes, my pathetic defiance, it's Boylston Street. But I'm not an atavist in spite of all that. Things were not so good in food back then. The food is better and more diverse. In those days there was the Hong Kong, still exists, there was Cardillo's, yes, and there were some surreptitious underground pita sandwiches. No matter how much I missed the University Cafe, back of Widener, and the Wursthaus, and the picture of Henry Kissinger, I'm still not an atavist. And Harvard Square has become kind of a chain food court, plus ATMs. Above all, though, the food of Harvard Square is not the good food of Cambridge. But what is the food? And that's where we'll get into a wider discussion. But by the time I had done with high school meals, which were completely beige at my high school, and we weren't supposed to talk about the food, I asked the teacher near me for salt and pepper one day, and the teacher rose up and said, "Pepper is too heating for young ladies." I knew what I wanted. But we moved out, and we ate other people's food. By the late 1960s and 70s, places like Peasant Stock. Before that, only what were called ethnic people ate what was called ethnic food. But they weren't usually in Harvard Square. Well, I went on, fast forward here, to go to graduate school I needed to earn money, and I didn't type, so I had to cook. Because that was what it was. So I took on a catering assignment at the Center for European Studies, which then was called the Center for West European Studies, because the wall hadn't come down. And I actually did cook for Henry Kissinger and Jackie Onassis and a bunch of other experienced European eaters. The only way I could manage, because I had never cooked before in my life, was to cook things they might not have had before, so they couldn't compare. So I was doing a lot of Middle Eastern food, a lot of Asian food, a lot of Latin American food, and I didn't always get by. And here's where the neighbor who helped me the most came into the picture. She always knew it was me when I called because I was always crying. She said, "What is it now, dearie?" You know who I'm talking about. So she saved my skin any number of times, and I'll tell you only one very quick story of how she saved me. I was making a vast amount of a Ukrainian pork and cabbage dish for a luncheon for 50. And I left it on the stove too long, and if you've ever smelt burnt cabbage, yeah, I know. So I sat on the floor, I cried, and they gave me the phone. So call her. So she said, Julia said, "All right, here's what you do. You put it into a clean pot. You go out to Savinor's, and you get sour cream, parsley, and a lot of lemons." What's that going to be? And so she said, grate the lemon into this pot, grate the rind, and then squeeze all the lemon juice in, because it changes the aroma profile that cuts through the scorch. And then the sour cream, make sure everybody puts sour cream into their mouths, because the fat cuts through the bitter. Okay, I mean, you know all of this. And then I said, "What's the parsley for?" And she said, "You're so silly, it makes it pretty." So then she said, the most brilliant part of all, she said, "Take, in a giant tureen, take this dish into the dining room and announce that the dish of the day is smoked borscht." So I was very lucky. And I'm also lucky to have lived past that era and now to be able to teach food, because when I entered graduate school, the advisor said, take all of that stuff. I had written cookbooks by then. Take it all off your resume or you'll never get an honest job. Food. There were always, let's go for a minute to Cambridges, because the plural Cambridges are what we see on that map over there. What is Cambridge today to many people is Frank's Steakhouse. And one of you wonderfully put Frank's Steakhouse up there. We've never really had a local cuisine to draw on. We're not New Orleans. We're not even LA. What we are is plural and neighborhood. Even then, there was diversity. Inman Square was burgeoning with interesting restaurants, the first legal seafood. The Berkowitzes started their empire there. The midget deli, I said before, the S&S deli. Somebody put that up. And Savinor's, of course. The older Jewish food families were very important in Cambridge's history. Neighborhoods keep changing. And this is where you have to allow for that. Who remembers Jeff's Discount Kitchen?
Oh, I do.
Yes. Well, now that Huron is a village, there's nothing discount about this. We have destination restaurants now. Neighborhoods like Central Square, where Toscanini's will soon reopen. Or the redefinition of eating areas across town. I see we have to think of something bigger than Cambridge. We have to think of Camberville, Somerville and Cambridge together, to see the big picture of food changing around here. You can see Sarma, La Brasa, the restaurants of Union Square, the restaurants of Davis Square, comprehended within a new cultural space, which includes Cambridge. I'd rather have East Broadway's Taco Loco $2 tacos than the ones at Naco Taco in Central Square, for example. I prefer Mr. Wang's dumplings in Magoon Square to Patty Chen's in Cambridge. I'm being very opinionated here, but that's what food does. What are we missing? I want you to fill in the blanks on that. What do you want? Not necessarily what do you want back, but what do we want now in the future? Have we gotten fussier because the bar is higher now? We all know good food. And because we actually have good food. Do you read the Globe and the New York Times on Wednesdays, the food pages? You grab the food section first, then you know who you are. We have star chefs. We have Anna Sarton. We have Tony Moss. And we have food writers like Devra First and Cheryl Julian. And a lot of star food, actually. There are things I miss, like Steve Johnson's old rendezvous in Central Square, where you always felt at home, comfortable, and had a great meal. But I think we can, I also miss the Cubano sandwich at Chez Henri. But I go back to Chez Charles, so there's a lot to miss. But this is a boom time for food, and there are lots of small local comforts we should seek out and inspire. North Cambridge, we've got more than Frank's. We have Upper West, you've been there? Noka, really good food.
Chickdale Garden. Chickdale Garden.
Yeah, that's right. Table, yeah, but, and now we cross into Arlington. Maybe Arlington needs to be part of the Cambridge culinary space as well. So I'm raising a lot of questions, and I've introduced a lot of topics, and I really want to get to our much more grounded people with direct experience of you as customers and of the foods of this area. So I'd love to turn it on, but we will raise questions of you later, and if you want to respond to me later, that's fine, but let's hold on, if you will. Hector, are you?
Ladies first.
All right.
Hi. I'm super loud. I don't think I need this. I'm not really loud. Also, people are like back there. Like, please sit. There's gotta be room here. And this is like the restaurateur in me.
Yeah.
So what do you want?
You're on.
Oh, like I'm just supposed to talk. You're not gonna like prompt me with anything? Besides everything you just said.
That's no food.
Oh, okay. All right. So, hi, I'm Kari Kuelzer from Grendel's Den. I own, partially own, my parents started Grendel's Den, and I have inherited a portion of the restaurant that my mother left to me when she passed away about 12 years ago, sadly, or more than that, actually. And I grew up in business with my family, kind of dragging me in there as a child, crawling around on a dirty restaurant floor, picking up like coins that the waitresses had dropped, and you know, this was like a job for me, so I would be occupied. And then I'd run up to the waitresses and be like, "You dropped this money," and they're like, "That's okay, you can keep it." I'm like, but yeah, so I mean, that's what I did as a child, and I just lived in the restaurant with my family, and worked there as a teenager. Worked in a lot of other restaurants in Harvard Square as a teenager as well. I went to Ridge and Latin. And I went to Buckingham Brown and Nichols as well, and I used to row out of Boathouse next door when I was in 9th grade, but then I transferred to Ridge and Latin in 10th grade and graduated from there, did drama with famous Oscar-winning actors and screenwriters and directors. And then I went to college in New York and Montreal. I graduated from Yale University, and moved to San Francisco and worked in restaurants for a while before going to Los Angeles and getting involved in the television and film industry. And then after like being there, kind of being a professional there, when my mother passed away and I had a baby, it came time for me to kind of like evaluate where I was going to like really invest myself and put down roots. And it meant a lot to me to come back and continue my mother's legacy with the restaurant and the legacy of the restaurant to the Cambridge community. And also I really felt at that point, I was like, I have a kid, and where would I really want them to be from is Cambridge, because of a variety of, you know, of my own experiences as somebody who grew up here. Like, it just gives you this gift that, you know, it's a gift, really, to have given my child the opportunity to be raised and grow up in a community such as this one, because you just interact with people from all different walks of life, from all different levels of like income and education and like background and experience and, or you know, country of origin, and it gives them this facility with all of those diverse populations, and they just kind of like take that with them. You can find a Cambridge kid anywhere. No matter where I've been, I've always been able to find the other Cambridge kids and know like that little quality of like the facility and the comfort level, and the sort of feeling of me being entitled to some access to almost anything is something that Cambridge gives a child. So that's my personal reason for coming back here. But the restaurant was really the other like family history reason, and I wanted to bring my own experience back to it, but also to do right by the legacy that my parents had built, which is to be a very eclectic place, to be a place that kind of was one of the first places. You were talking about the sort of European food and the sort of eclectic international cuisine kind of coming into the palates of people in the sort of mid-century in Cambridge. And Cambridge was, you know, it's a progressive city, but yeah, you did have like places that didn't, you know, pita sandwiches were new. And Grendel's was definitely part of the wave of the sort of pita sandwich wave and the other restaurants that my parents had before that in the 60s. But at that time, as you mentioned, like people were really looking to expand their palates. It was the cool thing if you were like a person of culture to start eating more internationally. So Grendel sort of came into that cultural movement and was part of the beginnings of that, and we continued to sort of, you know, stay true to that and stay on the forefront of the food. And I mean, I'm rambling at this point, but having been in California and like worked in restaurants there, I actually added a lot to the repertoire because there was more Asian culture in California and more Asian food that I learned a lot about, and like Mexican food and different sort of immigrant cultures, Armenian food, Russian food from Los Angeles that was more like immediately, like not like sort of the iteration of Russian and Armenian immigrants that we have here, like more like fresh off the boat immigration in LA. So there was a lot of like, I mean, I kept doing that throughout my travels. So I brought some of that back with me, and we keep bringing in new cuisines to our menu.
Maybe you have, I'm sure you have fans in the audience, but should we interact with the audience, or would you like to wait?
I mean, I would love, if anybody has questions, I could talk about anything forever. So.
I want to say one thing. First of all, Grendel's was the first place that I ever had quinoa. And it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't recently. You could have a rice bowl, or you could have a quinoa bowl. And, you know, I remember not knowing what that was, and that was a long time ago. But more importantly, I want to say that you have been a wonderful employer for many, many Cambridge kids who just continue to work for you into their 20s, into their 30s, as second jobs.
Yep.
And we really appreciate it for that.
Well, thanks. We have an incredible longevity for our staff, for our industry, which is a point of pride. And you know, we actually have a waitress who's been there since 1978, and she's not working tonight, but you'll see her there on Saturday night. I think one of my coworkers is supposed to have come here, but she's a Cambridge girl, like North Cambridge for generations, and she's been working for me for almost like 9 years. Yeah, like that's sort of the average, like 8 to 10 years. And also, yeah, quinoa, that's another thing that, like, sort of my time in San Francisco was like sort of early 90s, like hyper, like into like local, this was the beginning of like locavore, like DIY food, slow food, health food. So like I really I got real into that for a while, and I mean everybody is really well versed in it now, and it's sort of like almost a standard. But at that time, it was like you had to really work. You had to find these crazy ingredients. You had to go to these bulk bin stores with like jars and things that you saved, and like your whole house was full of like these cabinets full of empty things and full things and the process. So, like I've been through all of those movements in a way, and like it's fun to see. It's fun to see it become like more mainstream. It's sometimes a little frustrating to see it become like fast food.
There's a hand back there.
Yes.
How did you get your name?
Grendel's. So my mother, I love to talk about my mother. So my mother was a nice Jewish girl from Columbus, Ohio, Exley actually. She came to Simmons College for college, and then she finished at Ohio State. But then but she loved Boston. She fell in love with Boston, so she came back here. She got a job at Widener Library, and she was trying to figure out what to do with her English major. And then she met my dad, who whisked her into the restaurant business. And after like 6 years of running a couple other establishments on Mount Auburn Street, when they started their own place, she finally was like, I'm going to use my English major. I'm gonna name this restaurant something literary, which is actually a reference to the monster in Grendel, in Beowulf, who's named Grendel, and he's a terrible troll, and he comes and he attacks all the knights in the mead hall, and Grendel's is underneath this big sort of old Pieta Club sort of fraternity or finals club dining hall. So she was like, it's like the troll's den underneath the mead hall, except that he's like a friendly troll who like wants to have a good humor and that's why he's so grumpy. So that's where it came from. She figured that the like Harvard students all would have like read that in English 101, so it would be an easy reference. Today, it's like, I'm not sure if the kids get the reference, they're more like, I don't know. Kids.
About the rooms, you may have talked about this already, forgive me. How about the drink venue? How does that change?
Oh, that's interesting. So Grendel's is actually like famous for not having any alcohol. For about their first 13 years we were open. So we had to go to the Supreme Court of the United States to fight a state law to get the ability to serve alcohol. The law basically said that if you were within 500 feet of a church or school, that the church could just say nope, or just actually not say anything if you applied for a liquor license and you couldn't have one. This was a major establishment clause, precedent-setting case that was decided in 1983. After that, 83, and we got the liquor license that January, and opened April 1st, 1983, to serve all alcohol license. And then, shortly after that, we sort of got known as a craft beer bar, so we kind of like were one of the very first places to serve. We were actually the first place to serve Cambridge Brewing Company beer. It was outside of their brewery, so we have a long relationship with them. In fact, Phil told me that the first time he ever put beer into a keg was to bring it to my dad. To prove to him that he actually had a brewery in Cambridge. Because my dad couldn't believe it. He was like, I did a Supreme Court just to be able to serve alcohol. Letting me brew beer?
I think perhaps we should Hector, who has stories and
Can't hear you.
Not as interesting as yours and hers.
we will come back to more questions, I promise.
Hi all, I'm delighted to be here. My name is Hector Piña, and I was born in the Dominican Republic, and my relationship in Cambridge starts a little bit more than a year ago. One that already started, and another one that is going to be. When I was listening the list of the sponsors, I just want to tell a small story, but very important. Some 7 years ago, by accident, I met a person in a car dealership. We became friends. He's an architect, and actually his company is right here in Cambridge. So we became really good friends, and he's very enthusiastic, very happy person. And he always told me that he wanted to be in one of my projects. And by that time I said, you know what, I can't really afford you, because your company is so big that there's no way that I will be able to pay you. And he told me, who said that I want money from you? I just want to work with you. So when the opportunity came to open a restaurant, my Cuban restaurant on 811 Mass Avenue at the Hampton Inn Hotel by the Boston Medical Center, that happened to be the first Latino-owned restaurant in a hotel in the whole state of Massachusetts. Peter Soligo designed it pro bono. So, Cambridge 7 Associates. So, there's a lot of anonymous heroes out there. I just wanted to throw the story. And if you ever see Peter around, you see him walking around Harvard Square, tell him that you already know the secret. So if you go to Doña Havana, it's a Cuban restaurant, beautiful. So his mark is there, and I'll be grateful, all my life for that. My life in the United States starts in 1986 when I decided to come to the United States. And my background was computer science in the Dominican Republic. I used to work for the electrical company there. But my brother was already living here in Boston, and he was an operation manager for a big cleaning company. So when I came, that was the first thing I did. I was a cleaning supervisor at UMass Boston for 5 years, from 11 to 7 in the morning, overnight. And that helped me to get to do some savings. And after the cleaning business, my brother and I, we opened a convenience store on Blue Hill Avenue. That was late 80s, early 90s. And in 1994, I was helping a friend of mine who had a small restaurant with 4 tables and 20 seats to sell it. But if you remember, 94 was a little bit tough, so nobody wanted to buy a restaurant. And I ended up buying it. So I had no background on restaurant, but I said, you know what? I'm here, I put my money here, so let's start. Merengue started with 3 people. There was a lady in the kitchen. She was a cook, and myself, that I have some knowledge of cooking, had a person out front, and I had another person doing deliveries. And what I did back then was, I was always complaining of what I found on the existing Dominican restaurants. That was Merengue, the one I opened in 94. So I made a list of the little things that I wanted to find that were missing, and that's how Merengue started. So in 1999, that was actually 94. 99, I was part of during the Clinton years, there was a program in Boston, the Boston Empowerment Center, and that program helps small business to go to the next step. They wanted to have the potential to grow. And I was part of that, so we purchased the building next door to the existing restaurant. And Merengue came to be with capacity for 100 seats instead of 20. So that was like starting all over again. So I trained myself, and thank God that by that time I already met my actual wife, and she was the best thing that ever happened to me, because she was the one handling the whole thing. Even though her background is biochemistry, but somehow, I drove her to be in the restaurant business. She's actually catering an event from the restaurant at the Boston Foundation. So we have catered out of Merengue, like most of the venues, colleges, and universities in Boston. We have catered the Boston Red Sox for 20 years, the clubhouse, and the visitors team. David Ortiz is a good friend of mine, as well as most of the Latin players around the major league. You know that from the Dominican Republic, there's a lot of ball players, Pedro Martinez, Manny Ramirez. So Merengue was known for that. If you go to Merengue, you see hundreds of pictures of ball players and politicians that has been there through the years. So in 2012, the opportunity came to open another restaurant. That one was in Villa Victoria, which is a Puerto Rican neighborhood in the South End. And we named that one Vejigantes. Vejigantes is a clown-like figure of the Puerto Rican carnival, and is represented by a mask. So Vejigantes is being a great success. And in 2016, the opportunity came to open what is Doña Habana now, and it's the one that is at the Hampton Inn Hotel by the Boston Medical Center. And right after that, there was another opportunity that almost got me in a lot of trouble with my wife, because she didn't want another restaurant. Then we partnered with Dennis Benzang, and we opened La Fábrica. La Fábrica is in Central Square, and it's a Spanish-Caribbean fusion. And the chef at La Fábrica is a celebrity chef from Puerto Rico. Her name is Giovanna Hake, and she was on TV for 20-something years in Puerto Rico at noontime, so generations and generations of Puerto Rican learned how to cook with Giovanna. People ask me why Cambridge. I always wanted to have a restaurant in Cambridge because I find Cambridge to be really interesting. As she said, the people in Cambridge are not afraid to try new flavors. You have people here from all over the world. You can pick any person randomly in the street and you can have a nice conversation and an interesting conversation. The downside is that the Cambridge customer, they really demanding, and they put everything right away on Yelp, on Facebook, and you have to. That happened to you? That you have to be really careful. It's not like my other restaurant where the people are a little bit more, laid back on that. But people here in Cambridge, they really, technology savvy, and they write whatever it is right away on the table. But it's been really interesting, and I love it. We have live music there, Latin jazz mostly, and we have a lot of musicians, young musicians from Berklee College of Music, and they go there. They play salsa, they play Cuban jazz, and actually there is one of the musicians that play there that he's been a Grammy Award winner, and he teaches at Berklee. And I think what I really like about La Fábrica also is you have different environments. You have the courtyard, you have the jazz lounge, you have the restaurant, we have a ceviche bar, and we have a club in the back. So you're never bored there, If you don't like the food, you go dancing. But it's really interesting. I love it. And it's not that... I thought it was going to be a little bit harder, but I think we adapted right away, because in the 4 restaurants that we have, every clientele is totally different. I would say in La Fábrica, a party of 2 come, they make a reservation. And if they don't have a reservation, you can tell them, the wait is 1 hour. Okay, I wait. But if you go to Blue Hill Avenue on Merengue, the guy show up with 20 people, and you say the wait is 20 minutes, he said, no, I'll leave. It's totally different, different mentalities, different demographics, different backgrounds. So there's no a general rule for each restaurant. I think you have to adapt all the time, I think.
I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
because
I love it.
There's so much more to say. But one of the things when I teach Boston by Food, one of my food courses, is to talk about Hispanic populations in the greater Boston area, and to talk about the fact that we now know a lot more about the distinctions between the cuisines of Latin America or the Hispanic world more generally than we used to. And I take them to East Boston, and they see an amazing array of distinction.
Colombians, Mexicans.
Honduras, Nicaragua, yeah, it is everything. But now we have it in Cambridge. Thank you very much.
And before us, the only Latin food that you could find was Isis, that's been there for almost 40 years. I think it's good to mention that.
Would you like to ask her to comment us?
Sorry.
Oh.
Cambridge Historical Commission, we get this all the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
No mics.
Thank you. If you have questions for Hector, I think this is the time.
So, I really appreciate the culinary history and the sort of business history. But one of the things that a lot of us are concerned about is the commercial real estate market in both Central Square and Market Square.
It's very expensive.
It's very expensive, right? And I know that for a very long time, one single elderly woman owned most of the property in Market Square. She kept the rents, the commercial rents, way below market. And when she died and her family took it over, it became it became AMT and so forth and so on. So I'm curious, with all that we're talking about, bringing the ethnicity and bringing the diversity, it's up against the market. right? And I'm curious about that struggle that you all both have had, how you dealt with that. Like, who are the owners of the building and how have you dealt with that?
Actually, the owner of the building of La Fábrica is MIT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know what? They were really good with us. We actually took over the lease of the former tenant, and they work with us very. I mean, the rent is really high, but they work with us. I don't know about you.
Why don't you get questions for a while before we get into it?
So, in a similar vein, I was wondering if I could get your thoughts on the city and how helpful or unhelpful it is for restaurateurs. The Globe did a piece about 6 months ago about inequities in getting a liquor license in Cambridge, where some restaurateurs were paying upwards of $400,000 and others were getting it for nothing.
Well, Cambridge is really good because you have a lot of students. The students, they have college. Whoever is in college in Cambridge have to have money in order to be there. So they have money to spend. And also the people, I mean, if you're in Cambridge or Central Square, you are actually in downtown Boston. It's just going across the bridge. So whoever comes to Cambridge, they know that at some point they have to, you know, it's not going to be going to McDonald's. So it's a little bit pricey because you have to make. But you have students, you have their family who comes. You always have a turn of a clientele, tourists, you know, people who walk around Central Square every day. Is the traffic is amazing. So it's, you know, it's really good.
Any other questions? I see a hand there.
Meringue is a great Dominican restaurant. How do you end up deciding to do a Cuban restaurant in Cambridge? How do you adjust the cuisine and what's the nature of your
You know what? When you come from a developing country, your mind try to look for opportunities. What is in the market, what is needed. So when the opportunity came at the Hampton Inn Hotel, my wife asked me, it was way before they start opening the trades with Cuba. And she asked me, Hector, what are we gonna do there? I said, we're going to do a restaurant, so let's go to Cuba. So we planned a trip, we went through Toronto, so we spent a week there investigating. So I hired a Cuban chef here that was living, he was the head chef at El Hotel Nacional in Cuba, and he had a small restaurant in Malden that had to close because they sold the building and he has to go. So he's actually my chef there. So you look for opportunity. What is there? What is missing? And what people want is the way I say it. What is my next one? It'll be Peruvian.
Well, I would like to maybe open it up to all of us now with a few questions for all of you. First, I wonder if anyone has comments about any change in your eating out habits, or whether you now cook at home a lot with all the wonderful sources of ingredients that we have around here now. Do you do more cooking at home, less eating out, or the opposite? What is the balance in your lives? And if you can sort of give an estimate, how many times per week do you eat out of your home? Like, okay, 1, 2, 3. I think it's more like 2, between 2 and 3. Any more? 5? 4. 7. And
You have to go out a little bit more. You won't be able to survive.
This is an old crowd. You should see young people. They're eating out all the time.
well, if you don't eat out, is there a reason that's connected to the restaurants themselves why you don't?
Money.
I-
Too much money.
I'm I'm not hearing too well. I'm old.
It's expensive.
Cost. How about noise?
I will go to a restaurant that has good people, and I will pay money if I like the people there. If it's a great restaurant, and I don't like the people there, I won't go there.
Yeah. So it's about people. Well, for me, actually, it is about noise. Yeah. And, you know, it's a reason to go early, but that makes you feel kind of, you know. But there are restaurants I love, but I really don't have a good time there. I mean, the food I love, even the chefs I love, but it's just, for me, it's the noise.
The problem with noise is that if the restaurant is not a little bit noisy, then your clientele change.
That's right.
So you won't be able to attract the millennials.
That's right. I was told by a restaurant manager that when I complained about the noise and they could turn down the music maybe at least, and she said the owner likes it loud because the young people prefer loud because that signifies to them that they're having a good time.
Loud music and TVs. You have to have TVs.
So we don't have television sets at Grendel's, which is one of our biggest controversies, along with not having French fries. But what I'm really sensitive to a lot of this because we have like a really broad age range in our clientele, and we try very hard to kind of like constantly be attentive to creating like zones of auditory space, and our design is fairly conducive to this because we're in this sort of like cozy wooden and bricky basements with a lot of texture. So we do really work on that at Grendel's, but we do also need to bring up the volume to like create the ambiance at a certain point. Otherwise, it does feel awkward as well. So, you know.
Yeah.
But there are some spaces that are just it's a constant staff training problem too, to make them attentive to these little cues and feel out all of it. It's a lot of work.
But you know, the service aspect is really important, and paying attention to your customers is what you're both doing. And you know, there are restaurants that I go to because of the service, because people are really nice and accommodating and listen to you.
But a lot of the service is actually stuff that you're not even seeing them do. They're doing it when they're invisible to you, which contributes to your experience sometimes. And it's a vast amount of stuff that we're doing behind, like very much behind the scenes.
Yeah. Any comments? Yes.
One more question.
Oh, we have time for one more question. There are many people in the audience who would like to talk, so, yeah.
Are there any challenges or problems that you face that you would like someone to help with?
You know, the big challenges are the expenses right now, like insurance, workman's comp. You know, it's really crazy. Regulations, every city now throws a different regulation, so whatever you have is not existing anymore. Codes in the building and the kitchen, you know, changes. So you have to be like adjusting all the time, and that is money. That is, so you know, the profit margin, you know, gets lower with all the expenses that you have. Also, every time they raise the minimum wage, that's another problem.
Yeah, I actually don't. I'm less worried about the wage changes. Is like, this is going to sound really flaky and Cambridgey, but climate change actually affects our business because when there's a natural disaster like Hurricane Sandy, our insurance rates went up like double.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have a lot of those types of incidents, the person that pays for it is Hector and me. And then by extension, anyone who comes out to eat, if you ever do after all of this, like, you know what I mean? So climate change is actually a real factor, all the way down to a very small business, because of what happens to insurance rates as a direct result of like extreme weather events. So to the extent that you believe that extreme weather events are affected by man-made climate change, this is the result.
Is that because you're in a subterranean space, or?
It has something to do with, because we all share the cost, so that's the way insurance works, is that we pay for damages in New York, because they need to spread the risk. That's sort of the fundamentals of the ownership insurance.
The way it is, they create a formula, and
Yeah.
the insurance industry, they create a formula, and that formula go against the sales, the gross sales, not the net. So if your purpose in any business is increase your sales, so your premium will increase every year.
Victim of your own success.
Yes.
Well, I want to thank Hector and Kari for this wonderful evening, and to all of you who have made this possible, and to the audience who are so lively and wonderful. So we can mill about and talk to you. Yes, get some dessert. Thank you very, very much.